Alright, I'm back with another marathon video, and this is one I figured I would be making eventually. Marathon has been delayed by Bungie out of its September 23rd release date. The catch being it does not have a new release date. It does not have a new release window, except for last week Sony said it would be out in fiscal year 2025, which would be March 2026 is when the fiscal year ends. Again, no confirmation of that specifically, but given how close this was, maybe that's the range, which would be, over 6 months or so, but we just don't know. Bungie published a blog post about all this, kind of laying out the rationale and then talking about what they're going to work on. So I figured I would just start by reading this. It's not super long, as I'm sure they didn't want to do like a full breakdown of all this, but all right. Marathon development update. Thank you not only for your passionate feedback around the Marathon reveal and the alpha playtest, but also for your patience while we took the time to listen closely and chart our next steps. Through every comment and real-time conversation on social media and Discord, your voice has been strong and clear. We've taken this to heart, and we know we need more time to craft Marathon into the game that truly reflects your passion. After much discussion with our dev team, we've made the decision to delay the September 23rd release. The alpha test created an opportunity for us to calibrate and focus the game on what will make it uniquely compelling: survival under pressure, mystery, and lore around every corner, raid-like endgame challenges, and Bungie's genre-defining FPS combat. We're using this time to empower the team to create the intense, high-stakes experience that a title like Marathon is built around. This means deepening the relationship between the developers and the game's most important voices, our players. Over the next few months, we'll continue closed testing, including participants from the alpha, to deploy gameplay updates and test new features as they come online. Some of our immediate areas of focus will be upping the survival game, more challenging and engaging AI encounters, more rewarding runs with new types of loot and dynamic events, making combat more tense and strategic, doubling down, as a new category, doubling down on the Marathon universe, increased visual fidelity, more narrative and environmental storytelling to discover and interact with, a darker tone that delivers on the themes of the original trilogy, and then adding more social experiences, a better player experience for solos, duos, proximity chat so social stories can come to life. You'll hear from us again later this fall when we can share the progress we made alongside the game's new release date. Thank you again for your patience and, much more importantly, your passion. That's the third time they've said passion in this short post. Your continued feedback will help make Marathon the incredible gaming experience we all know it can be. Okay, so this isn't good. Like, yes, I absolutely think that Marathon needs a delay, but announcing one that does not have some sort of scheduled, release date at the back end of this, not even, we'll be out this, before the end of the year, or we'll be out in the spring or something, seems a bit odd to me, and it feels sort of like they're just going to be sort of playing it by ear, and if there's enough feedback from the tests that their things are coming together, then they'll launch it. But not hearing from them until fall is probably at least another 3 months, closer to when the game was originally supposed to come out. And obviously this is not a move that projects a whole lot of confidence, and this is in contrast to the Sony announcement about the bold and innovative Marathon project from Sony, and how it's it's a key piece of their live service strategy. They have this and Fair Games as like the near term ones that they're working on going forward, and Marathon is from Bungie. That's a big deal. Fair Games is going to be canceled, or it will be a total disaster. In terms of some other things, I know that Bungie, like the larger dev population of Bungie, just found out about this today. I believe this is mostly to prevent leaks, as there are a lot of leaks, some of which are to me. But this is, news to a lot of people, but I don't think that this is a huge surprise. I think there were some other options here that were not, really considered enough. I think it could have been a good idea to launch an early access and just be like, okay, like they're kind of saying like, oh, we're building the game with you, but like it's not early access. They're just talking about closed tests indefinitely. They didn't announce dates for those. There's no real, it says including participants from the alpha, so that I don't understand what that means exactly. People who are already in the alpha, are these like alphas or like closed internal tests? Some of them, I'm a little confused about what that means, but it's not clear when we'd ever get an open test. I know the original plan was to do an open beta in August, a month ahead of release, and that's clearly not happening. Again, without some sort of end date as to when launch actually will be, which we won't find out for another 3 months. And because this is happening, like the release date is in another 3 months, I can't imagine it's going to be like October, November. Like this is not going to be like that short of a delay, but it's not going to be a year either. In terms of, what's not addressed, they didn't touch on the art stuff at all in their big audit. I imagine that might be like a separate thing. I don't think they're just like never going to talk about that again, but they have to say something about that at some point. In terms of their stuff that's been added, I said online that I'm not like terribly impressed with this list, and people are like, whoa, this is everything everybody wanted. And I'm like, is it? And a lot of this is, I don't know. It kind of feels like some stuff they've already talked about, or some things that, we already knew were coming. The survival game thing, challenging and engaging AI encounters. I thought that was actually one of like the good parts of Marathon. Like I'm okay with them, adding more to that. There is this sort of far-fetched idea that, people were hoping that, oh, well, Marathon's this PvP game and like the universe is cool, but I just want to play PvE. They're not adding that. Sorry, but like they were never going to add that. That's just not remotely in the realm of possibility. So kind of upping AI encounters is something that they can do. More rewarding runs, new types of loot, and dynamic events. I mean, we were always going to get new types of loot past the closed alpha, right? Like that's not really up for debate. Dynamic events, I'm not 100% sure what that's going to mean. I think it's, might be map stuff like calling down supplies and things. More rewarding runs, so you get better stuff, I'm guessing. And then making combat more tense and strategic. That seems kind of necessary given that this really does not play like most extraction games, in that I've always said it plays like slow Apex Legends. Maybe the idea is that they're slowing it down even more. I have a feeling this has to do with a lot of time to kill stuff. They've already talked about that. They talked about, shield penalties and, bringing the high geared people and the low geared people a little closer together so it's not as lopsided. I'm assuming that's sort of in the, the category there. You have games that are in the genre where like any player can just land a crazy headshot on someone and kill them, and I don't expect it to go that way, but that's what I would imagine that is talking about. Doubling down in the Marathon universe. This is an interesting category. Increased visual fidelity. I mean, yeah, that's not news. We all know that the closed alpha did not look great, and they've said that they're going to make it look better over time, which, that's great. I believe they can, because interiors looked really good. I'm sure they can make exteriors look better, but that's not, news. More narrative and environmental storytelling to discover and interact with. That's cool. I would like to find some cool stuff on the map that, does lore, because lore is sort of mostly relegated to like the little speeches the vendors give you. A couple like in-game lines. At least that was from the closed alpha. I do wonder, like, there aren't that many PvP focused games where the lore is just like a huge part of it. Like, some games have over time, over years and years, like there's the Overwatch world or whatever. But, I think injecting more lore into this is not really, like, that's not what dedicated PvP people mostly care about. And just having more lore in the game is not what, like, I wish there was more PvE crowd cares about. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know how much that will move the needle. And that says a darker tone that delivers on themes of the original trilogy. I don't think it's just the tone. It's like the whole aesthetic it just like doesn't remotely seem like the same series, which I like the aesthetic. I've always talked positively about the aesthetic up until the plagiarism thing, where you can't really talk that much about the aesthetic now without the plagiarism being brought up. I don't really know what that's going to consist of. I thought that the stuff they have done has been, sufficiently creepy with the lore that we have seen and the ARGs and stuff. I just, what are they going to do? Make the color palettes darker? I'm just not entirely clear on how this is going to work. There's all these, videos and stuff and like the cutscenes of like people getting shot and like, bleeding out and stuff. But like you shoot people in this game. It's a T for teen game. They're just turning into backpacks and things. And, I don't think we're going to be dismembering people with our bullets. I mean, that would be awesome, but I'm not going to bank on that. So I'm not quite sure what that means. And then the last thing here, adding more social experiences, a better player experience for solos, duos. Okay, so that's not saying, a solos playlist. It's just saying better experience. And they already talked about that in the Extremely Awkward live stream. They talked about, what they were made, like we designed this around trios, but we're looking at, how things might feel better, in if you're playing solo, or if you lose team members and then you're solo or a duo, and so you don't feel like you're guaranteed to be steamrolled. If they were making a dedicated solos section, I feel like they would have said that, but so yeah, I don't think you can be like, they're taking our feedback, like they're going to do solos. Like maybe, but that's not what that says. Proximity chat is like the hard feature that everyone is like, yes, we need proximity chat in this extraction shooter. I remain somewhat unconvinced that Marathon is designed in a way where proximity chat is going to be a thing in the same way it is for like other extraction games, Tarkov or whatever. It just, these gameplay loops, it just doesn't feel like that, like we're going to have as much of use for that. But whatever, it's what people want. Like it's part of the genre. Like, yeah, totally do it. I don't know if that's like, this is the thing that's missing. I'm not, even if they did the delay that they needed to do and they're doing these specific things, I'm not going to change my long-term position that I don't think this is going to work. The core issue here is that like all of this is baked into the game. The major things are baked in. This is an extraction game, very much designed around threes. You're never going to catch too much of a casual crowd, with a game that makes you lose your loot permanently. That's the nature of the genre, so great. But, I didn't exactly hear any Tarkov players saying they were going to convert over to this. And the view from that side was that this was too easy. This was not hardcore enough. And it seems like that's, Bungie's not leaning toward making it more casual. They're trying to lean toward making it more, challenging, between AI encounters and making combat more tense and strategic. Like that's very much a traditional, Arc Raiders, Tarkov, whatever it is, format. So one of the problems is like, is never really picking an identity, whether it wanted to be like super hardcore or super casual. And it was kind of splitting the difference. It seems like they're sort of picking their side, but we'll see, how much changes. Like there's all these other things like reviving from duffel bags and how fast looting is and things that are, not hardcore enough for hardcore extraction players. And then of course there is the pretty much widely dismissed idea of having a class-based hero shooter in an extraction game. This is something that changed late in the game when Joe Ziegler came. And it's been a very strange, it was a closed alpha. There's going to be balanced stuff, but you have a fully invisible character as one of their core moves. You have a wall hack character. You have one character with like insane mobility no one else has. It has certainly felt a bit weird, but that's like, you're never going to stop doing that. Like they're not going to just pivot to customizable characters. Like that's not happening. And then one thing I noticed here is that like, okay, say you're delaying the game, like let's say like 5 months. Presumably you were going to run some sort of season or two, depending on how long this is going to be, and add in more characters and maps. They didn't say that they're adding more characters and maps past what they were planning to do for launch. That would be 2 more characters and 1 more map that they've already confirmed. So it would be 6 characters and 3 maps. And then we do know there is this 4th map that has the, quote, raid-like mechanics in it. That was going to be, sometime, I think, pretty soon after launch, but they're not talking about like, okay, well, we're going to launch with 8 heroes now and 4 maps or 5 maps or whatever. So like, that's not something listed here. It is certainly possible that they're going to do more stuff than they're listing here, perhaps a lot more stuff, but what they've listed here is not exactly easy. So it's going to be, the combat department, the art department, the narrative department, like they all have stuff to do. And now the pressure is really, really on and the heat is really, really turned up. I mean, it already was after kind of the initial feedback of what the gameplay in the alpha had. So again, this was the only thing they could do in terms of a delay. I just don't know if a delay being like, yeah, we don't have a date, we'll talk to you guys in the fall with a date, and then just skipping any sort of concept of like early access, nothing about potentially changing to free to play. Probably too late for that, even with the delay. And they seem kind of married to the premium price here. You know, I can't really. I've always said that like if there's something positive to say about Marathon, I would say that instead of being relentlessly negative. Someone on Twitter just said this is my fault and I'm costing people jobs. I'm like, okay, let's calm down. But other than, yes, obviously they needed to delay it and they delayed it. Like I'm not super positive about much of anything I've seen here other than like, yeah, they're going to give people prox chat that they should have gotten. And like, if they can make the narrative better, that's cool. But you know what I mean? Like my position has always been that like the fundamental nature of this game is not going to work very well. And I think rescuing the vibes of this, like you only really get one chance to make a first impression. And I think you could pretty much add all of this stuff. And I don't think it would overall shift the narrative, you know, maybe among the super core people who are like genuinely very excited about that. But I don't think that is, you know, you need to be impressing the wider shooter market, not just the people who are going like, you know, you're being too hard on Marathon, like this has potential. There's not that many of those people. You need to convince the wider market as a whole that this is, you know, really turning around, this is going to work. And then on top of this, we have the whole plagiarism scandal, which has colored the entire thing in a different way and cemented Bungie's, you know, reputation as a dev that ends up having stolen art in their games, whether it's a third-party person or an ex-dev or whatever. This has happened like 5 times. So we're really not going to hear anything from Bungie directly, I guess, until fall. They talked about these closed tests, but that seems very nebulous. If they do another closed alpha, I mean, maybe they're going to do the NDA this time. So I think some people were saying that one of the big mistakes was not doing the NDA for that because it allowed such like widespread, you know, spreading of gameplay and these opinions and stuff. But I'm telling you, you put 20,000 people in a closed alpha with an NDA, there's going to be loads and loads of leaks, and you're going to only have a few people giving out the narrative, or, you know, 100 people as opposed to 1,000 giving out the narrative. But that, you know, that can still be significant in its own way if the feedback is still rather poor. So we're going to go, I guess, on information hiatus for a while. I will continue to attempt to find things out. I can maybe report behind the scenes, including perhaps the Bungie reaction to this since they just found out about it today. But yeah, so here we are. This was inevitable, but I'm not terribly encouraged by, you know, both the way this is being rolled out and the stuff that's being proposed seems fine, but I'm not like, oh, well, here we go. Like this is the turnaround point. And maybe that's me being a pessimist, but I can't really bring myself to think that this is going to be some major 180 or, you know, the turnaround that this game needs. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments and I will talk to you soon. Take care.